There it is. Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, God's provision for a successful life. God bless you now. Why don't you have your seat? God's provision for a successful life. God provides. God provides the methodology for a successful life. No one is going to be successful who wants to have his or her own way. No one is going to be successful who throw tantrums and who wear their feelings on their sleeves. Not going to be successful. You're not going to be successful. Anyone who thinks that God will bless them and all they want is to have it their way. And if it doesn't go my way, then you hit the highway. Life is not that way. And God does not bless anyone who is so egotistical and egoistical that they feel like I am too important to waste my time with people who don't do what I say. That's not the way to prosperity. That's not the way to God's success. Now, I don't know what he's talking about. I just bought a brand new house. I don't know what he's talking about. I just bought a brand new car. I don't know what he's talking about. I don't know what the preacher's talking about because I just got a brand new job. But there are just some folk I can't stand. Well, the devil gives out stuff too. And don't you forget that. The devil gives out stuff too. And anytime we become selfish and egoistical and egotistical and selfish, then the devil is feeding you. The devil is feeding you. And anytime anyone, whether he's a child of God or not, anytime anyone becomes so concerned about themselves that they cannot get along with anyone, then you're on a downward spiral. And as the little boy said, you got grease on your pants. And you in for a great slide. God's provision for a successful life. I shan't be long. God's provision for a successful life. I begin this with an introduction. This is the first chapter of the book of Joshua. Now let me bring you up to date. I bring you up to date with an introduction. The introduction to the message is about Joshua. Not only is it about Joshua, but if you look at the 34th chapter of the book of Deuteronomy, which may be one page over to your left. If you were to turn to Deuteronomy chapter number 34, I do not want you to, I'm just giving you the information. I don't want you to get involved in Deuteronomy 34 because you will miss this lesson. What I am saying to you is, as an introduction to Joshua chapter number 1, might be well if in your leisure you read Deuteronomy chapter number 34. In Deuteronomy chapter 34, what you're going to find that Moses, God's great servant, over 40 years, who led the children of Israel out of Egyptian bondage, is getting ready to die. Not only is he getting ready to die, but then we flip to chapter number 1 of the book of Joshua, and you will find that in the very first verse, the Bible makes clear that Moses is dead. verse 1 and 2, Moses is dead. Now, Moses is God's man. Moses was God's man. Moses was one of God's greatest prophets. Moses had a relationship with God that no other earthly man had. Moses was God's leader. God plucked him out of Pharaoh's house and sent him into the wilderness for 40 years. At 40 years old, God plucked him from the clutches of Pharaoh and his stepmother, Pharaoh's daughter, and sent him into the wilderness. And there he herded sheep for 40 years. When he became 80 years old, God spoke to him. And God spoke to him out of a burning bush and told him that he needed him to go down to Egypt, tell Pharaoh to let my people go. He's 80 years old at the time. Now then, we come now to the end of his life. This great man, Moses. We come to the end of his life. Now, God leads him to a region near Mount Pisgah and the area and the region near Jericho. God says to Moses, who had led his people for over 40 years, God said to Moses, whom he had talked with face to face. Moses had a relationship with God that no other person had. Now he is 120 years old, and he's getting ready to talk with God for the last time. God calls him near Mount Pisgah and near the region, or in the region near to Jericho. Says to him, Moses, in so many words, I'm literizing this. Moses, you've been with me 40 years, and you've done well. But you're not going to be able to go to the promised land. He said, but what I want you to do, I want you to come up on the mountain, Mount Pisgah. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you something that's never been viewed by anybody else. I'm going to show you the promised land. This promised land was promised by God to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. God had told Abraham and Isaac and Jacob that I'm going to give your seed a land that flows with milk and with honey. And here it is now that Moses, for 40 years, had led God's people all the way to the region of Jericho, around Mount Pisgah. And God called Moses up on the mountain. And God says, now I'm going to show you the promised land. Nobody had seen it like God is showing it to Moses. And God showed Moses the promised land. God showed Moses that land that God had described in the Pentateuch that was so prosperous that God described it as a land that flowed with milk and with honey. And so God showed it to Moses. But he said, Moses, you're not going to go there. Out of all the years that you've worked for me, worked with me, out of all the years you have led my people, over 40 years through the wilderness, and you have been, for the most part, faithful. But you're not going to get a chance to go to the promised land. I'm going to show it to you, but you won't get there. And so the Bible teaches that Moses died. That's the previous chapter, the 34th chapter of the book of Deuteronomy. Moses died and God buried him. And nobody knows, even until today, where Moses was buried. That's it. Now we flip to chapter number 1 of Joshua. And in chapter number 1 of Joshua, we find God speaking to Joshua. And here's what you're going to find in Joshua chapter number 1. Note now that the lesson this morning is about God's provisions for quality life. Every young girl in this house, I want you to listen. Every young boy in this house, I want you to listen. Every mother in this house, I want you to listen, because God is going to give us instructions as to how to have a principled and good life. So if, young man, you want to be somebody, and if, young lady, you want to be somebody, and you want to make a difference in the world, then I suggest you listen carefully to what God says to this young man, Joshua. Because what he's going to say to Joshua is a principle philosophy by which every young person, every mother, every father should live by. If you want a principled life, and if you want a quality life. Now, of course, you can counter that by saying no, I'm doing fine. I'm doing fine. I don't need nothing else. I'm cool. I may not be faithful to the church, but I'm cool. I'm cool. I'm doing all right. Got a job, got a car, got a family. I'm fine. I'm fine. Okay, you fine. But I suggest to you that you could be better if you listen to God's instruction. Now, Brother Keith, verse number 1 but first let me just say this to you. 3 things, write it down. Write them down. 3 things God does from verse 1 to verse number 9. 3 things he does. We won't be able to get to all of them. Hopefully I can. Number 1 is God speaks. That's number 1. God speaks. You want to write that down. Number 2, God assures. God assures. Oh, we got the jumble. God assures. A-S-S-U-R-E-S. God assures. Number 3, God charges. C-H-A-R-G-E-S. God charges. Now we have God speaks. God assures. God charges. Now the task before me is to show you that when we get to it. God speaks. This philosophy of life, the principles that I'm going to give you, are guaranteed. And the reason they are guaranteed is they are given by God himself. Yeah. Now we read verse 1 of Joshua chapter 1. The Bible says what?
Now after the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord, it came to pass.
Now I told you about that. Moses is dead. And I don't need to go back over that, but I'm just reminding you that I've already told you that. And when we get to verse number 1 of Joshua chapter number 1, the Bible says, now after the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord, it came to pass that the Lord spake unto Joshua,
the son of Nun.
Now, you see, that's rumor number 1. God speaks. God speaks. To whom does he speak? He speaks to Joshua. Joshua is Moses' minister. Joshua is Moses' assistant. He works with Moses. He is a mentee of Moses. M-E-N-T-E-E. He's a mentee of Moses. Moses is his teacher. Joshua is a disciple of Moses. Joshua wants to be like Moses. Now, that's important. It's all right. It's okay to have a mentee. It's okay to want to be like someone else. But I'm going to show you what that means. I'm going to show you the dangers of seeking to be like someone else. Because there is a decisive difference between yourself and someone else. Don't want you to get that confused now with being a mentee to someone that you admire. Now you may want to be like your preacher. You may want to be like your school teacher. You may want to be like your coach. You may have picked out someone in life you want to be like. That's fine, but be careful. Not only be careful, but if you're going to do that, there are some psychological things that you have to understand and you have to remember. Now, there's nothing wrong with you. I want to be like my Aunt Maddie. That's who I want to be like. I want to be like Uncle Henry. That's okay. I'm not fighting that. But at the same time, you have to go into that kind of decision with a certain knowledge of how to handle it. Because if you don't know how to handle it, it will handle you. Now, the Bible says, now after the death of Moses, Moses is dead, the servant of the Lord, it came to pass that the Lord spake unto the Lord spake. You want to underline that because you see, that's that first Roman number 1. I told you 3 things happens here in chapter number 1. Number 1, God speaks. Yes. That proves that God speaks. It came to pass that the Lord spake unto Joshua, the son of Nun, Moses' minister, saying what? Verse number 2.
Moses, my servant, is dead.
Moses, my servant. I've gone over that with you, so you understand that. Moses is dead now. He's dead now. And God did not allow him to go to the promised land. 40 years he led God's people, but he made a mistake. And now that would take me another 30 minutes, so I don't want to get into that. That the instant where God told him to speak to the rock, he hit the rock. And God says, for that you will not go to the promised land.
That's it.
Now, it's deeper than that, but I don't have time to get in there to show you why Moses hitting the rock is so important. I mean, why was just hitting that rock so important that God would not allow him to go to the promised land? That's interesting, but don't have time for that. But there is a reason for that. Probably tonight I'll deal with that. He said, now go over this Jordan, thou and all thy people, unto the land which I do give to them, even to the children of Israel. God is speaking. Who's God speaking to? He's speaking to he's speaking to Joshua. Who is Joshua? Joshua is the young man that has followed Moses for 40 years. And he wants to be just like Moses. And the reason is Moses had a strong relationship with God. Moses had the Spirit of God. Joshua watched him, looked at him, followed him, and decided in his head that he wanted to be like Moses. God spoke to him. And God says, now Moses, my servant, is dead. I need you to underline that statement. Moses, my servant, is dead. My servant. Yes, sir. He's dead. This young man, this young boy, he idolized Moses. He wanted to be like Moses. God knew that. So when Moses passed away, God spoke to him and said, Moses, my servant is dead. And here now is an opportunity for you. But in order for you to be successful, you're going to have to understand certain things. Because success does not come easy. You got to work for it. You got to work for it. Now, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now, therefore, arise. Get up, get up, get up. I don't want to stay there, but just underline arise, because that's the word of emphasis in the story. Get up. Get out of the bed. You can't stay in the bed all day and expect to be successful. Get up. Put your dirty feet on the floor. Put your feet in the street. And find a job. Find something positive to do. Get out of the bed. Of course, that's not what God said to Joshua, but that's what I'm saying to you, of course. Therefore arise, go over this Jordan, thou and all his people, unto the land which I do give to them, even to the children of Israel. God says, now, I'm going to give my congregation, I'm going to give my people a great inheritance. I want you to lead them. Next verse.
Every place that thou sole of your foot shall tread upon.
Now you want to underline that, because we get into rumor number 2. Rumor number 2 is God assures. God assures. Now the first thing we did was God spake. Now we at rumor number 2, God assures. And so here's what God is doing. God is saying, if you really want to be somebody, if you really want to make a difference in the world, if you really want the world to take notice of you, if you really want to be an impact in the world, then here's what can happen. He assures them. Or he assures Joshua. But first you got to be a follower of God. First you got to lack church. That's number 1. You're not going to get the blessings of God if you don't lack church. Because if you don't like church, you don't like Jesus. Because you cannot have one without the other. If you don't have time for church, you don't have time for Jesus. Now, I know what's going on. You don't have time for certain people in the church. Now, I know what the problem is. You don't have time for certain people in the church, therefore you may not come to church. But that's not what this is all about. As Mama said, you got the cow by the tail here. No, you come to church, you study the Word of God, you live a Christian life, not because other folk are looking, but you do it because you love God. And that's important. Now, God's assured. Now, for those of you who are believers, for those of you who are members of the Church of Christ, for you young fellas, and for you young girls, even for your mothers, even for the single women, single men. This is good for everybody. If you want to be successful, if you want to make a difference, listen to what God says. If you want to make something out of your life, you're going to have to look at somebody other than LeBron James. You're going to have to look at someone other than Michael Jordan. You're going to have to look at someone other than, you're going to have to look at someone other than. If you really want to be a success, if you really want to be a leader, if you really want to make a difference, if you really want to be a good teacher, if you really want a good mother, then listen to what God has to say. Because if you don't, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. God assures. What does God assure? And here's what you want to remember. See, for those of you who want to make a difference in the world, For those of you who want to be the best that you can be, those of you who want to make a positive contribution to the world, those of you who want to make a positive contribution to the church, then listen. Here's what God says to you. For all of those of you who are sitting here saying, you know what, I love my church, I want to make a contribution, I want to be a difference, I don't want to be a hindrance, then here's what God says. If you made up your mind that you want to make a difference and that you want to be a difference, and that's important for all you kids who are in school. And I tell my boys, as church boys and church girls, I tell them, listen, now you're going off to school. Don't, and even those who are here, even those who are in high school, those who are in junior high, and that is, don't be a follower, be a leader. Don't be a follower, be a leader, because the crowd will lead you the wrong way. You want to be a leader. That's what you want to be. You may not know exactly what you want to be right now, but here's what you do know. You want to be something other than what you are right now. And those of you who have that philosophy, those of you who have that desire, here is an assurance that comes from God. You're struggling mother, you're struggling father, whatever it is, you're struggling student, whatever it is, here comes an assurance from God.
Yes, sir.
God says, every place that the sole of your foot shall tread upon,
that have I given unto you.
That have I given unto you.
As I said unto
As
Moses.
I said unto Moses. Now watch this. Because this is going to take some time for you to decipher. Because what I'm going to do with this, I'm going to take an oxymoron and make it make sense. And that's difficult to do. But I'm going to show you the difference in distinctiveness and similarity. That's an oxymoron. In other words, when you say that's an oxymoron, I mean it can't be both. Yes, it can be both. And I'm going to make it. I'm going to show you that it can be both. Because you see, when you say that she is distinctive, he is distinctive, that means that he or she is unique. That means he or she is different. They have their own personality. And their personality describes them. They are distinct. But when I say similarity, or when I say similar, that means like, L-I-K-E. That means resembling someone else or something else. Now, if you understand that, but maybe I need to say it again, because what I'm really doing is I'm showing how you can be distinctive and similar, and how you can be similar yet distinctive. Now, that's what I did. Now, let me show you how I did that. You may want to be Doc. You may want to be like Doc. You can't be Doc. But you can be similar. Even though you are not Doc, because he's distinctive. He's different. He's got his own image. He has his own thing. You can be similar. You can't be Doc. Can't be you can't be Doc. But you can still be similar. But if you are similar, and if you are similar, you are not Doc, but you can be distinctive in your similarity. Wait a minute, let me see how I can break that down so you be sure you get what I'm saying. And that is that nobody can be me. Nobody can be me. All right. And nobody knows me like I know me. I know, Doc. Stop lying. You don't know me. No, you don't know me. Oh, I've been seeing Doc for 40 years. Seeing me. Seeing me is not knowing me. But that's a whole other story. All right, now. Distinctiveness. You can be similar. You can imitate me, even though you are not me. Even though you are a replica of me, you can still be distinctive. You can be distinctive in your similarity, but you can't be me. And if you get those two confused, you'll have some long, weary nights. You have to know how to be different, yet similar, if that's what you want to be. So what I'm going to show you in this story, I'm going to pull out similarity and distinctiveness and show how you can be similar by showing you that God told Joshua the same thing he told Moses. I will be with you wheresoever thou goest, as I was with Moses. But here's what you got to understand, Joshua. You ain't Moses. Y'all missing this, but I'm enjoying it. Now, God, I'll clear it up. I'll if you still don't understand that dynamic, but you're going to have to understand it to understand this story. Because if you don't, you will begin to wonder, why is God blessing him and he ain't blessing me? And if God is with me, that he is with him, why ain't I getting what he getting? Or y'all missing it? Yeah, this is deep, but it's good. It's a mindset. It's a mindset, and it keeps you from being jealous. Some folks just as jealous as they can be. Oh, I ain't jealous. Stop lying. You know, if you weren't jealous, you would have been there. Or whatever the case is. Now, the Bible says, every place that the sole of your foot shall tread upon, that I have given unto you, as I said unto Moses. I'm going to give you everything that I gave to Moses. I'm going to bless you every way I blessed Moses. All right, now let's read the next verse. The next verse says, every place, watch this, boy, this is powerful. I mean, this is powerful here. Every place that the sole of your foot shall tread upon, that have I given unto you, as I said unto Moses. I am going to give you everything that I gave Moses. Now, the reason this is important is because, you see, some folk think that, you know, if I drive the same car, I'm just as important. if I live in the same area, then I'm just as important. But that ain't so. That ain't so. Because you are not the people that live in that area. You're not those folk. You may be similar, but then sometimes that is not the case. But it's a mindset. It's a mindset. You see, you don't go from nothing. You don't go from anti-intellectuality to a PhD because you're trying to ape somebody else. And so many folk have misunderstood that, and that's what God is teaching in this lesson. God is teaching, he is saying to Joshua, I am going to be with, W-I-T-H. I am going to be with. You see, the key word is with. I'm going to be with you as I was with Moses. So that's what you have to understand. Young man, as you go through life, you have to understand that God, if you're going to play basketball, if you're going to play football or whatever, you're going to run track and you want to be like LeBron James or Michael Jordan or whoever those people are, you can't be them. But God will bless you to be successful just like they were successful. But there's no way you're going to be LeBron James. Even though you got on his clothes, you got on his pants, that whatever it is they call them. You got his shoes. You got a tattoo. But you are not LeBron James. Now, you know what that means? That means at some point you are going to have to figure out who you is. I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings. I'm just giving you facts. Now, I know who you ain't. I know who you ain't. You ain't me. So you got to figure out who you are. You can't go through life acting like you somebody else and trying to give the impression that you were somebody. Now, you see, this is deep, and if you misunderstand it, you think I'm fussing. But that's not what I'm doing. What I'm saying to you is, if you don't get a grip on your selfhood, if you don't get a grip on who you are, you will find yourself trying to be somebody else. And here's what you can't do. You can't be anybody else. Now watch what happens here. If and when you realize you cannot be somebody else, now you got a problem if you don't know who you are. Are you following what I'm saying? And this is why our folk have mental disease, mental problems. They don't know who they are. And then sometimes those who know who they are won't accept who they are. I want you to think that I'm Mr. Rockefeller. Well, how you gonna be Rockefeller and you are broke? You see, this is deep, but it's important. And I want my young folk to understand this dynamic. I want my young folk to be able to tell the difference. I want you to, if you're at the heights, I want you to, when you leave the heights, I want you to be intelligent. You may not like the heights, but at least you can be intelligent. And that you're not there, and you're not going through life acting like and pretending that you're somebody else. But what are you saying, Doc? Just be who you is. And as a matter of fact, you can do well when you decide to be who you are. Oh, say amen when you can. See, we run into problems when we try to believe and show folk that we somebody else. You are not somebody else. Be the best. If you cannot be a hill, a shrill by the side of the hill, if you cannot be the sun or the moon, be a star. But whatever you be the best of whoever you are. I don't want you to misunderstand me. The doctor's saying don't imitate him. That's not what I'm saying. I'm deeper than that. I'm deeper than that. But I don't want you imitating anybody to the point that you think you are them. Now, every place that the sole of your foot shall tread upon, that have I given unto you, as I said unto Moses. In other words, what God is doing is, God is saying, I'm giving you everything I gave Moses. But I'm not going to make you Moses. But everything Moses had, I'm going to give it to you. I was with Moses, and I'm going to be with you. As I was with Moses. Just like I blessed him, I'm going to bless you. And then the next verse says,
every place that thou, from the wilderness of this Lebanon, even unto the great river, the river Euphrates, all the land of the Hittites, and unto the great sea toward the going down of the sun, shall be your coast.
Now, that's God assuring Moses. Joshua. That's God assuring, I'm going to be with you. Wherever you go, wherever you put your foot, I'm going to be right there with you. Yeah. Because that's the way it was with me and Moses. Me and Moses had a thing going. That's what God is saying. See, me and Moses had a thing going. And wherever Moses went, I went with him. And whatever Moses needed to do, when the Israelites got hungry and they needed bread, Moses talked with me, and I rained down bread from heaven. See what I'm saying? When the children of Israel needed water, God said, well, go over there and smite that rock, and water is going to come out of that rock. You see? God was with Moses. That's what he's saying. And he said, now just as I was with Moses, I'm going to be with you. Now that's what you call God assures. That's number two. Number three, God charges.
Yes, sir.
And I'm going to close it out here. God charges. God charges. C-H-A-R-G-E-S. That's Roman number 3. God charges. Go ahead and read it.
There shall not any man be able to stand before thee all the days of thy life.
God's assuring. Go on.
As I was with Moses, so will I be with thee. I will not fail
that's
thee.
That's assurance. As I was with Moses, so I'm going to be with you. Go ahead.
I will not fail thee nor forsake thee.
I'm not going to fail you. I'm going to be right there with you. Go ahead.
Be strong and of good courage.
Now, God charges. God charges. C-H-A-R-G-E-S. That's number 3. God charges. Now, if you want what Moses had, if you want a relationship with me like the relationship I had with Moses, here's what you're going to have to do.
Yes, sir.
And I'm saying to all of those of you in the room, as well as young as the young as well as the old, if you want God to bless your life, if you want God to give you strength to get through what you're going through, if you want God to give you strength to get the devil off your back, if you want God to be with you like he was with Moses, then watch what he says. Be strong.
And of good courage.
Be strong.
And of good courage.
And of good courage. And what else?
For unto this people shall thou divide for an inheritance the land.
Okay.
Which I swear unto their fathers to give them.
Yeah.
Only be thou strong
be
and
thou
very
strong.
courageous.
Second time he said that. You got to be strong. You got to be strong. There's no need of complaining. They don't like me. They don't like me. They don't. No, that's not it. You don't like yourself. Be strong. God says it more than once. If you want to make a difference in this life, you got to be strong.
Yes, sir.
Fortune, fame, or whatever is not going to come to you relying on somebody else to be nice to you. I want to say that again, young folk. As you go through life, don't you think folk are going to be nice to you because your mama name is whatever. That may be one reason they're not nice to you, because well, what your mama... Be strong. He said it twice.
Yes, sir.
Be strong. I'm talking about God's provision for quality life. You got to be strong. You go through hurricanes. I mean, the winds of adversity will blow against you. You're not exempt from the winds of adversity. I mean, who are you? Who am I? Upset because somebody talks about me. I mean, who you think you is? And the higher up you go, the more folk are going to talk.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying?
I know you're right.
So you come in this church and you sit on the back seat and you don't do nothing. You don't expect nobody to talk about you. You ain't doing nothing.
Right, son. All right.
And if you have a problem, it's your own personal problem. It's not because of something you doing, because you ain't doing nothing. Now come on up closer.
All right, son.
And get on a committee. And start walking around in here. All hell breaks loose. Because that's the way it is. That's the way it is. And if you are in the church or in the building, in the room, and you are not performing, you are not doing anything, you're not helping anybody do anything, don't you tell me the folk out there don't like me. Don't like you. Why? What are you doing that they don't like you? Nothing. It's not about the folk. It's about your skepticism. And it's about how you feel about yourself. But now if you come up here and start doing something, somebody gonna start something. Now, Keith, if you're going to lead song service, if you're going to teach a Bible class, if you're going to teach the Wednesday night class, if you're going to have a Sunday school class, if you're going to pray every now and then, don't come to me and tell me they're talking about me. You expect them to talk about you because you're up front. And if you were sitting back there doing nothing, don't nobody care about you. The only folk that other folk care about are those folk that's doing something. You say, well, Doc's so fussing this morning. No. I'm trying to help you. I'll finish it tonight. I'll put it together. I will show you how Joshua felt when he came up against the same thing. See, when Joshua came up against the same thing Moses came up against, it was different. It was different. It didn't wait for him like it wait for Moses. Moses, let me make this point, then I'm going to let you go home. Came to the Red Sea. God said, stretch your rod across the sea, and the sea will divide. Joshua came to the Jordan River. Oh, y'all ain't getting this. Y'all ain't getting this. Joshua came to the Jordan River like Moses came to the Red Sea. When Moses came to the Red Sea, nobody got their feet wet. Oh, y'all missing this, aren't you? God said, just stretch your rod. And the sea divided. They marched across on dry land. Here come Joshua to the river Jordan. Jordan running chilly, deep, and cold. And God told me he was going to be with me like he was going to be with Moses. So all I got to do is get my rod. All I have to do is just get my rod, because after a while, God gonna tell me, like he told Moses, stretch it over Jordan. Moses walked across Jordan on dry land, and they even come in contact with the water. But Joshua, when he came to the same situation, he had to step down. Oh, y'all ain't getting this. Y'all ain't getting this. Y'all ain't getting this. But I'm going to let you go home, and then we'll finish it tonight. But I'm trying to show you how God and what God meant when he said, I'm going to be with you. I am not going to do with you what I did with Moses. And like I did what I did with Moses, but I'm still with you. Are you all following what I'm saying? Yeah, because I'm sweating here, so I just I want to be sure you get what I'm saying. And that is, whatever it is you're doing, whatever it is you're doing, even if you are chauffeur, whatever it is, and that other fellow over there whom God is with, and you whom God is with, and you is just as faithful as the fellow over there, God will be with you like he is with this person over here. The difference is he may or may not be with you like he is with this person over here. So what does that mean? That means you have to find out really who you are. And when you find out who you are, then you don't expect God to do for you what he might be doing for somebody else. That means you have to find your own distinctiveness. But you can still be distinctive. You can still be distinctive. You see, Joshua was similar to Moses, but he wasn't Moses. But God was still with him. And God will be with you. And I want to say to my young folk, God will be with you. I want to say to all the members of this church, God will be with you. He may not be with you like he was somebody else, but he's still with you. So don't be peeping over there in their yard. Don't be peeping. Praise the name, but you see what kind of car that was that they drove up there. They was saying, God is still with you. He's there with you. But he may not be with you like he's with them. But he's still with you. And if you are here today and you want to say yes to the Lord, and if you are here today and you need strength and you need faith to believe that God is with me, I'll start there tonight. Be strong, be strong, be strong, be strong, be strong. And that's the problem that so many members have. They don't have the ability to be strong. Be strong. Temptation is going to come. When the church is out and you go out there on that lot, if you ain't careful, somebody's going to be talking about you. I ain't doing nothing. I haven't done nothing. I have not said nothing. I don't talk about that. But that doesn't mean they ain't going to talk. You see? But yet God is with you. And if God be for you, tell me who can be against you. Say yes to Jesus this morning. If you are not a member of the Church of Christ, say yes to him. Now is the acceptable time. Behold, now is the day of salvation. Say yes to him. If you're not a Christian, say yes to him and let him be with you. I'll talk more about it tonight, but Jesus said, go into all the world and teach all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and lo, I be with you. Lo, I be with you. Lo, I be with you always, even to the end of the world. I want you to say yes to Jesus. If you need to do so, if you need prayer, I want you to come right now and let us pray for you. You need strength. You're going through something. As they say, you're going through a little patch right along in here. I'm going through a little patch. I never knew what that meant. You know, Mama used to say all the time, well, I'm just going through a little patch, but I'll be all right. But Jesus is in that patch. He's in that patch. And he wants to be with you. He wants to be with you. He wants to be with you. You see, that's the whole point we don't realize. Jesus wants to be with us. You see, he wants to love you. He wants to let you love him and him love you. He wants that. You see, and he said, come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I'll give you rest if you come to him. And if you're here and not a member of the church, come let us baptize you today for remission of your sins and let God add you to the church. Say yes to Jesus so God can begin to provide a quality of life. So God can begin to provide a quality life for you, a quality family life, a quality employment life, a quality old age life. You know, and you young folk know anything about this, but once you pass 50, life start getting complicated. All y'all 50 years, you might as well say amen. It start getting complicated. You won't admit it. I'm good. I'm good. Okay, well, bend over and touch your toes. You bend over, you're going to mess around, you're going to need Jesus. You got that right. If you need the Lord, I want you to come to it. This is the invitation to say yes to him. Let us together stand. Prayer time now if you need the Lord.